Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to the library. Another video today. It is summer. Well, I mean, it's not. I think it's like what, June 19th, 20th, 21st? I don't know. Anyway, it's not exactly summer yet, but it's about to be. So we're going to do some summer book recommendations I think you would enjoy from various genres, summer young adult, summer adult. I've just got a little bit of everything. But first, our drink of the episode, because, you know, I always have a fun, weird, ridiculous drink. And this one is cotton candy seltzer water. I just found it yesterday, limited time only at Kroger. It is amazing. It tastes like cotton candy. There's no sugar, no fake sugar, no real sugar. It's just seltzer water and flavor, and I'm obsessed. It just tastes like cotton candy. You would think cotton candy would have to be sweet, but it doesn't have to be. It's so good. I'm obsessed. I mean, seriously, cotton candy seltzer water? Like, who comes up with these things? That's somebody that is after my heart, I guess. Anyway, okay. Speaking of hearts, let's do our one romance. I've got one romance book on this TBR. Not TBR, whatever this is. Recommendations. That is Last Chance Books by Kelsey Rodkey. It is a young adult romance, and it's about people that like books, obviously. It says book lovers can be haters, too. I recommend this because I don't normally read romance, and I wanted a book about people that love books, so I tried Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and that's not what I thought it was going to be. This is actually about book lovers, and it's about two people that work in a bookstore, and one's a used bookstore that's like a little family-owned business, and then next door comes like this big chain bookstore who's going to put them out of business, and of course, two of the characters that work at each of the stores wind up falling in love with each other, and they really have an enemies to lovers kind of thing going on because they're rivals. In fact, she winds up like even hurting the guy kind of accidentally. But it was really good, and I highly recommend it. Next, we just have one sci-fi? Is this sci-fi? Yeah, just one sci-fi, and that is the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. I don't know how to say his name. It's really short. It's really fast-paced. That's one reason I'd recommend it, like 250 pages. I listened to the audiobook. It was narrated by Will Wheaton, so I highly recommend the audiobook. It seems summery because it is set in like a jungle-type setting, and yes, it's about preserving kaiju, like big giant monsters like Godzilla. And it's sort of set in the real world at first, but then they go to like another world where there are kaiju. And the main character is like he's a dead-end driver for a food delivery app. COVID-19 has just swept through New York City, so there's like mention of the pandemic and stuff, but it's very modern, and it's a lot of fun. In fact, the author even says, like, at the end, there's like a note from him where he's like, hey, if you were looking for anything serious, you know, this is not it. This is just a fun little book. And it's cheesy, and I wanted something fun because of, you know, the pandemic, and I was like, you know, this is what this book is. Yeah, you're right. So it's not the best book I ever read. I think I even only gave it like 3 or 3.5 stars, but I still recommend it for a good, fast-paced, like fun summer read. Next, we have two, actually they're both young adult, so sorry about all the young adult books, but they're actually really good even for adults. Two fast-paced summer like thrillers or mysteries, and this one is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson, who wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which was a great series for even adults, not just young adults. But I would recommend this book because it's about a road trip, and that's why I think it felt very summery. There is a lot of blood, there's a sniper, the entire thing is set in an RV, which is the only downfall for me. I like a little bit of change of scenery, but honestly, that it was so fast-paced, it doesn't matter. Like, here's even the floor plan of their RV that they're in. The main character has ADHD, so it was really interesting to see her like in this terrible situation, but then like also trying to deal with her ADHD. She literally gets distracted by like the curtains and stuff. But there are a lot of secrets, and even the main character is keeping secrets from you, and it's like, but you're inside her head, so that's kind of interesting. And yeah, I just thought it was really fast-paced. Now, the ending gets ridiculous. I loved the plot of the ending. I could see where some people would be like, oh, well, this is stupid. I can't believe it went there. But I actually really, really enjoyed it. So it's a standalone, so it's not like Good Girl's Guide to Murder. You don't have to commit to like a whole series. The next one is another fun summer thriller that I recommend all the time, and it's called Solstice by Lawrence Allison. Yes, it's young adult, but it doesn't matter because it's so fun. It is super short. It is so fast-paced. It is about a tropical island, like, what's that festival called? The Fire Festival, is that what it was called? Where like people bought tickets and it was super expensive on the side, like in real life for a music festival, and they got there and it was terrible. Like Jay-Z or Ja Rule, was it Ja Rule? Or I don't know, somebody planned it, and like there was no place to stay, and there weren't like there were just porta potties and not enough food and whatever. Anyway, that's basically this. Like it's if there was that same fire festival, but then dead bodies start like turning up. And you have to figure out, my favorite part of the book is whether it's like something natural, like there was just an accident, the people drowned or something in the ocean. Was it supernatural? Because there's even like legends of a sea creature. Was it like these killer like jellyfish around the water? Is it murder? Because there's a lot of fishy characters in this book, like that have planned the music festival. And of course there's a big storm coming and they're stuck on the island. They can't get off the island. There's no cell phone reception. The main character didn't even tell her mom she was going to this music concert. It cost like $10,000 a ticket, but her best friend was able to get her tickets because she's rich. So super fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. Next, we have 2 horror novels that I'm going to recommend to you. The first one is young adult. The second one is not. So this one is Hold Me Closer, Necromancer by Lish McBride, and there's a sequel called Necromancing the Stone, and I loved the movie Romancing the Stone back in the day with Michael Douglas, so I thought that was really funny. But Hold Me Closer, Necromancer, it says it's a funny book or a funny scary book or a scary funny book. Either way, it's a great book and I love it. Is what Sherman Alexie there says on the front. So it is. It's about like this necromancer comes to town and the main character finds out that he's also a necromancer, and it says that he's got an undead friend on his hands and a hot werewolf girl for company, but can he figure out how to use his mysterious latent powers before this like bad necromancer like tries to kill him. So it's like an urban fantasy set in, it says the paranormal scene in Seattle. So it's funny. I was shocked how right off the bat, I don't want to spoil anything, but I feel like it would convince you to want to read it, is like within the first maybe couple chapters, a girl gets decapitated, but her head, she then is a talking head for the rest of the series. So he like carries her head around in a bag and talks to her. So there's that. The other horror book I want to recommend is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. It's still my favorite Grady Hendrix book, which is the first Grady Hendrix book I read. So my theory is kind of like whichever is the first one you read is your favorite one. But this one is so Stranger Things vibes. It says this book packs all the magic of a summer horror flick. That's what it is. And look, it even looks like a old VHS tape or something. So I listened to the audiobook and I really, really enjoyed it. It is very Stranger Things vibes. So best friend of this girl gets possessed and no one believes her. That was the part that's like so irks you the whole time. You're just like, oh, why does no one believe her and they can't see what's going on? She realizes she's the only one that can save her best friend. And the way she actually winds up saving her best friend with the exorcism is really, really cool and kind of funny. So there are some scary moments in here too. And like it's creepy in places, but for the most part, like the first half is really just like setting everything up. A lot of it is like before the girl even gets possessed. Not a lot, but like quite a bit. And there's like a lot about their friendship. It's mostly just about their friendship, honestly. And it is such a summery vibe and I highly recommend. Now we've got tons of fantasy because why not? We're going to do some fantasy romance. We're going to do a series. Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and the sequel is The Ballad of Never After, and the third one is coming out in like September or something. I don't know. I think it's sometime this year. Anyway, I just read these books back to back like a couple months ago, and they would just be really fun summer fantasy romances because they're ridiculous. They have like every fantasy trope you could ever imagine. There's even vampires in here, or a vampire, and I was like, what? There's vampires? There's like time travel. There's like a bad, love interest, morally gray character. It's like A Court of Thorns and Roses, but if it tried to be like kind of even funnier, like it knows what it is. I think it knows it's like a parody of all these tropes. It's not a parody, but just it literally includes every trope you could ever imagine, and it was just so fun. Like I had so much fun. It says it's a mix of mystery, romance, magic. Yeah, there's even a mystery in here. It's whimsical, it's entertaining, I don't even know. It's just, it's ridiculous, but kind of in a fun way. And The Ballad of Never After, I didn't think was as good, but I really, really liked this first one. So I'm hoping the third one will be as good. A couple other young adult fantasies that I actually really enjoyed. A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I love T. Kingfisher. She's got a lot of books, but this would be the one I would say would be like summery because it's a light, fun fantasy romp, if that's what you want. Because literally the main character, her only power is that she can control bread. And you always see these like epic powers, you know, where you can control all of time or whatever. But in this one, her only power is that she can control bread. She can make little bread gingermen, you know, ginger people, gingerbread men. There we go, gingerbread men come to life. And she has to wind up basically saving her city. Like it says, she has to bake defensively. It starts off with a murder. Like there's been somebody, like a dead body shows up in her bakery she works in, and she's like 14 years old, and she has to kind of get sucked into this plot and figure out who this person was. You know, the person had powers. Now there's other people being murdered that also have powers. So could she be next? They think that she's a suspect, so she has to figure out who it really is. She gets involved with some of the actual politics in their city. And yeah, I don't want to say too much more because it would give away too much. So there were even some, like, there was even a sad moment in it. So yeah, I mean, but the tagline is Siege, Sorcery, Sourdough. So you can imagine what kind of book it's gonna be. The other young adult fantasy, this is actually my own copy, I even bought this book, I loved it so much, is Raybear by Jordan Afueko. The sequel is called Redemptor. There's only the 2 books, it's a duology, and I mean, you can just see how like summary it looks. It's an African inspired fantasy novel. It is set in like another world, obviously like a high fantasy setting, but it's very African inspired. And there's not a large chunk of the book, but a decent little part of the book is they go on like an adventure out in the jungle, and it's very summary. If you read this little synopsis, this happens in the first like 50 pages of the book. So then I'm like, well, then what's going to happen next? You know, like you just have no idea where this book is going or what's going to happen. The world building, that's actually why I read it, is because people said that the world building was like Game of Thrones level. I don't know about Game of Thrones level, but there was some epic world building in this for young adult fantasy, and I absolutely loved it. So highly recommend. And I'm picky about like high fantasy, so that's something coming from me. Speaking of high fantasy and jungle-y type settings that seem very summary, Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. I hesitate to recommend this in some ways just because I didn't continue the series. I DNF'd the second book in the series because it wasn't about the main character from this first book, so I couldn't get past it. But this first one was so much fun. I know it's massive, and it's really, really dense and intricate and like hard to even understand who is who and what's going on, because there's like body switching and like you don't even know who's who. People like reincarnated as other people. I mean, seriously, like you cannot even hardly keep track. But there are dragons, demons, gods, prophecies, true love. However, the main character, Kieran, is not destined to save the Empire. He is destined to destroy it. And that's what I thought was really cool. So yeah, it's really confusing. And there's like a lot of, things in the background. There's like a family tree that tells you like who's who, but sometimes there are other people that are like reborn as different people, and sometimes they have a stone that allows them to like go in, I don't know, like switch souls. I don't know. It's a lot, but it's a very summary read because it's action packed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of settings that are very tropical, I feel like. So as far as a high fantasy goes, it's not like a cold world, like, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something. It's not all just like rocky cliffs. And I mean, it's very jungly. So that's why I think it would be a good fantasy for the summer. Which means we only have 2 books left. Or no, we don't. I think I have more that I just don't own physically. I lied. So there are more. I have 2 books physically to show you, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I'm pretty sure everybody and their brother's heard of this, so I'm not going to go on and on about it, but even the cover looks super summery. It's kind of a whimsical, we have it listed as like realistic fiction, but it's kind of a whimsical fantasy. On the back it says it's 1984 meets the Umbrella Academy with a pinch of Douglas Adams thrown in. It is, and some parts of it even reminded me of like Harry Potter, like the Ministry of Magic or something like that. Like he kind of works for this thing that's kind of like the Ministry of Magic, but he's very much more of a Scrooge type character that doesn't really have much personality. And then he goes and has to investigate these children at this like magical house, and there's one kid in here that is so funny. Like he is my favorite character, like in not all of literature, but one of my absolute favorite characters of all time is one of the kids that's in this house because of who he is and what his power is. His name is Lucy, and if you read the book, you'll know why because his character is it's interesting. It's epic for sure. And anyway, yeah, so he goes to this house and has to investigate and maybe try to shut them down, but it's a very like found family kind of trope because it reminds me very much of like Scrooge, because then he like, gets attached to them and becomes nicer and learns, it says, about tolerance and defeating bureaucracy, which is where a little bit of maybe 1984 comes in. The Umbrella Academy, maybe, because each of the characters in the house has like a different power, and it's very heartwarming. It says it's a modern fairy tale, but I don't know, it's like it says this book is close to perfect. Yeah, it is. It's really, really good. So I highly recommend, and it's just really fun and lighthearted, and it's a really good summary read. The book that I want to show you that is nonfiction, would be, and I've talked about this book on this channel before, but it's Unweaving the Rainbow by Richard Dawkins, because it seems summary with, being even called Unweaving the Rainbow. If you like science, it says this is a love letter to science. And it says it's an attempt to counter the perception that science is cold and devoid of aesthetic sensibility. His writing is precisely the sort that captures the drama of science. It's rich with metaphor, passionate arguments, wry humor, colorful examples, and unexpected connections. His prose can be mesmerizing. So it's like science turned into art, basically, and it literally is about unweaving the rainbow. It says, why should we reduce the rainbow to just prismatic colors, as Keats contended? Did he, in other words, diminish beauty? Far from it, says the scientist. Newton's unweaving is the key to much of modern astronomy and to the breathtaking poetry of modern cosmology. Mysteries don't lose their poetry because they can be solved. The solution is often more beautiful than the puzzle, uncovering deeper mysteries. With wit, insight, and spellbinding prose that have made him a best-selling author, Dawkins takes up the most important and compelling topics in modern science, from astronomy and genetics to language and virtual reality, combining them in a landmark statement of the human appetite for wonder. So it just seems like a very summary kind of topic, and it just makes science more of an art. And if you like nature and science and even space and thinking about just very cosmological issues, the cosmos, then this could be the book for you. 4 books I don't own, but I would also recommend for the summer, and then we'll be done. And that is of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It gives me so many vibes of House of the Cerulean Sea. And people love Legends and Lattes because it's like a cozy fantasy. So I feel like this is a cozy fantasy. It's also a romance. This is definitely more of a romance, but it's very cozy. It's very found family vibes, but the writing style is funny. It's really, really funny. And I was shocked at how funny it was. So highly recommend for summer because it's just really fun and fast paced. And there's a twist at the end. Actually, there might have been 2 twists, I think. But yeah, I highly enjoyed it. And I would actually read this one again. I gave it 4 stars, but I would read it again. In fact, I do need to buy this book. I'd also recommend the Fractured Fable series by Alexi Harrow. The first one is A Spindle Splintered. The second one's called A Mirror Mended. A Spindle Splintered, though, is sort of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, which Sleeping Beauty is my all-time favorite character from Disney movies, so that's probably another reason why I loved it so much. But I would read these because they are fun retellings of those stories. They're funny. The main character is very snarky and witty, and that's why I think it's not your typical retelling. It's very modern, it's set in the modern world kind of retelling, and there's a lot of traveling between different worlds, which I really enjoyed. So it's a novella too. I forgot to tell you it's a novella, so it's super short, and so is the second one. So if you just want fun, fast-paced, modern-day fairy tale retellings, but I don't know, I'm not even a huge fan of retellings, but I love these. The last 2 books I'll recommend are by the same author. The first one is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's my favorite of her books so far. I think I've read 4 books by her now, which is who even am I? Why am I reading these books? Because I don't read realistic fiction. But this one's really summary because it's about a tennis star. She is the best tennis player of all time, but she's she's gonna have to retire. I think she does retire. It's been a while since I read it, and now she is making a comeback because somebody's gonna beat her record, and she doesn't want them to beat her record. So she's gonna come back and try to beat this girl who's young, even though she's older, and she has to retrain. And it's kind of just her story, which doesn't sound that interesting. But if you've read the Malibu Rising, where Carrie Soto is kind of a very, very minor character, because all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books are connected and the characters sort of pop up in the other books. But anyway, in that book, she is really a villainous kind of character, and she is not the nicest lady. We'll put it that way. And so I think that's why she makes for a very interesting main character, and neither is the guy. There is a love story kind of in this too, and the love interest character is also not very nice. And so I don't know, I think they make really unique protagonists. They're just unlike most protagonists from other books. Which brings me to my final recommendation, which is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because it is, look how summery it looks. It's literally about a family that surfs. The four main characters, they're 4 siblings. They are what I actually found most interesting is that they are the children of a famous rock singer, who basically was in love with their mother, but then ran off and became a successful rock star, and now never sees them, never sees the kids. So they have a lot of issues that they're all dealing with. It's basically about the 4 of them kind of equally, and their issues that they're all dealing with. And then every year though, they have this big party at their house. So it's basically set in present day, leading up to the party, but then tons of flashbacks, tons. Most of the book is flashbacks about their parents and about their own lives. And then it finally comes to a head at the party, and of course the dad's going to make an appearance, and they're going to have to like confront him and deal with some of their issues. But I really enjoyed it as far as a realistic fiction goes, and I do recommend it as a good summer read. Yeah, editing Megan here, I totally forgot one of the most important books that I needed to mention, which is The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. I just read this book last month, and oh my gosh, I gave it like 4.5 stars. How did I forget to tell you about this book? It is set on the island of Nantucket, and it is a summery, fun, like hotel story, but then there's a ghost, and that's why I read it, because I heard there was a ghost aspect. It turns out that's not even my favorite aspect. The ghost that is in this hotel is actually like a friendly ghost, and you see her point of view even, which was really fun. But there's this man that's bought this hotel, and he's going to revamp it, and it's going to be like the best hotel ever. And it's not even about him. He actually lives like in another country somewhere, like England or wherever, and he hires a host hotel staff though, and it's more about like the manager of the hotel, but also all the hotel staff. It is multiple points of view, and everybody that works there has like a different issue kind of going on, so it's definitely realistic fiction. But it was so entertaining, and kind of the overall premise in the background, which is one of my other favorite parts, was that there is a reviewer, some hotel reviewer, that gives up to 5 keys instead of stars. She gives keys, so like up to 5 keys for hotels, and she goes to these hotels and doesn't, like, nobody knows who she is or what she looks like, so you don't know, like, you won't treat her any differently, you know, than anybody else, so that she can actually really rate them. And she goes during like the busiest season, and she has like a long list of demands just to really rate the hotel accurately. And she's never given 5 keys. The highest she's ever given is 4. And so this hotel is determined to get 5 keys. So the whole mystery in the background too is like, who's the reviewer going to be? Is it going to be this person staying at the hotel? Is it going to be that person? Like, you just don't know. I kept thinking I knew who it was going to be, and actually I did not. So, I mean, it was kind of cool that there was sort of a twist at the end, and then like, are they going to get the 5 keys? And there's a romance, and I don't know, it was just really fun. And there are some kids in it that were really cute. And like I said, the ghost was really cool. So anyway, highly recommend as far as realistic fiction goes. It was so fun and summery. If you just need a palate cleanser from like epic fantasy or something, I would totally check out Hotel Nantucket. And that's coming from a fantasy reader. So those are just some books that you might read this summer. You might also grab you a cotton candy seltzer water, because if you have a Kroger nearby, highly recommend. It says limited time too, so you better get it fast. But anyway, I will talk to you guys again later. Let me know down below if you plan on reading any of these books, or if you have read any of these books and what you think about them. They're not all like my favorite reads. Like, some of them are even 3-star reads. I just think they're really good for summer though, for what they are. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys again later. Bye.